Thanks everybody for joining us today. First, we'll talk about the challenge of process complexity, kind of setting the stage for how process intelligence was built, how we kind of combine these things to help solve that problem of process complexity. Then how the process intelligence, what its role is in solving that problem, especially how it relates to automation and RPA. We'll do a brief kind of process intelligence demo, go through some of the features and functions of the tool. I'll close with a couple of quick slides, and then we'll do some Q&A. So let's jump right in. All right, let's start our journey to process intelligence with the challenge of process. We're all surrounded by business processes that we either created or inherited. These business processes have a start, and they have an end, and some number of activities that take place in between. But rarely does this process blueprint or process map turn out so clean in production. To illustrate the complexity of real-life production, let's use an order-to-cash process as our conceptual example. We've got our start and our end, and a simple representation of the activities that take place within this process. This start-to-end flow that we're looking at, this is what we call one variant of our order-to-cash process. One way to flow through the activities from start to end. Now, if we're rolling this process out new, we're going to see some unexpected activities pop up, like maybe a sales order price increase. This would make our second variant to our order to cash process. So we now have two ways to flow from start to end happening in production. If we're looking at an existing production process, we've probably already seen this happen, and we probably already mapped it out. But what we might not have visibility into is the lack of the clearing of the invoice after creating it. This is now our third variant, right? Our third way to get from start to end. If we see an increase in price, we'll likely see a price decrease, variant number 4. We may be expecting a change in material and a shipping type change, but maybe we're not expecting a change goods issue date step. Maybe we're not expecting an increase in delivery amount and a remove billing block step, especially not the sometimes abrupt end after that step. And as we continue to perform this process in production, we continue to see, or maybe not see, all the different activities and paths this process is taking. And before we know it, we're looking at 25 or more different variants occurring for this one process. Now, we can tell this if we have visibility into what's happening in production. If we don't have that visibility, we still might think our process looks like this. Sure, we probably realize that there are some different variants happening out there, but if we don't have the visibility, then maybe just beyond our view is this gigantic bowl of processed spaghetti like we saw in the previous slide. That realization of what that process can really look like out there in production can be overwhelming. I mean, what do you do about it? Multiply this one process example by all the production processes occurring in production, and it's a vast sea of spaghetti. And it's just incredibly daunting, just an incredibly daunting effort to try to do something about it. So how do we deal with this complexity? How do we transform or migrate our processes through this complexity? And how do we all do all this and optimize efficiently? Well, today there are a number of different ways to tackle this complexity. One way is to first identify what is happening in production, to discover what is our as-is state and get an answer to what's really happening out there in production. This can be done through process capture, also known as task mining. So basically trying to find out what our humans are doing in production. How are they interacting with the system? What applications are they using? What drop-downs are they selecting? What boxes are they entering data into? And then we can look at the process flows from that data, looking for opportunities to improve those processes, maybe trim down some unneeded variants, and then maybe producing some training documentation to get everyone on the same page. Another way to solve this complexity is through process mining, taking a look at the underlying production system events. this combination of kind of system level submissions from our humans. So they've clicked all the drop downs and they've clicked submit, and then the system records it. So it's a combination of kind of those system level submissions, as well as the system only interactions that are happening in our processes. Again, looking for optimization opportunities, looking for hidden system issues, any unnecessary rework that might be happening, and any general performance improvement opportunities. Both of these methods are dealing with what's happening in production today. A look at the as is of our business processes and discovering the truth of what's really going on. Another way to handle process complexity is to build automated testing around our business processes. We can look to stabilize those current complex processes with test automation, looking to build comprehensive end-to-end test coverage to give us confidence as we continue to develop and improve the systems around our key core business processes. It's not like we're not going to stop the presses to fix all our processes, trim them down, and train everybody to stop making spaghetti, and then start them back up. So business process testing gives us the process support to keep pushing forward, to keep developing and improving systems. Yet another way to solve the challenge of process complexity is by building RPA, taking those repeatable production processes, automating them with robots while redirecting our humans to deal with more complex production processes. Building our digital workforce for some of these production workflows can relieve some of the pressure around processes and add a solid production structure, as long as issues are identified prior to production. RPA can seem risky. After all, we're replacing production processes with robots, but if done well, it carries a very big ROI. Today, here at Worksoft, we have a platform that combines all these solutions to the process complexity challenge that we just covered. We call it the Connective Automation Platform, and it includes our process discovery tools like process mining, which is scanning for that underlying truth of what's going on in production systems. It also includes process capture, which captures and helps track the human steps being taken in production. We leverage that same process capture data to auto-generate documentation that can be used to educate or record for posterity. We also use those same captured steps and data to build test automation. So Certify, it continues to deliver lights out testing and confidence in the DevOps process. And Orchestrator is our RPA tool, allowing for secure, compliant execution of production processes, which, by the way, can also use the same step-by-step capture data. We've connected all these approaches to these business process challenges in one codeless platform. There are a lot of benefits that come with a platform that encompasses the complete life cycle of business process analysis. There's the efficiency gained by the reuse of materials, like using the capture data to build documentation, build automation, and build RPA. There's also the experience of one platform, using one platform over many, right? And especially when it comes to user experience, training, and support. The one platform solution is also, it's ready when you are. You don't need to start process mining, automation, and RPA all at the same time. You can start at any stage. You can pick up wherever you are now and then start to leverage the work that you're already doing to help speed progress in the other areas when you're ready to take those on. And I still haven't gotten to how process intelligence fits in yet. So all this stage setting that I've done was necessary to talk about the building of process intelligence. To achieve true process intelligence, we need to look at the challenge of process holistically. We've already discussed many of the ways that we can take on the process challenge, but regardless of the method, it's all done in pursuit of a better process. With that in mind, we look to take our test automation data, our process capture data, our process mining data, and weave it all together with our RPA data in order to elevate the path to more efficient processes, more stable systems, and ultimately better ROI. To better illustrate this, let's break it down a bit. If we look at the process data from an automated test result, it has a start and an end and some activities that we've built automation for in between, right? Our process capture data also has a start and an end, And in this case, more activities than the test automation, probably because we just haven't gotten around to automating those other activities yet, right? We've got the process mining data that has all our underlying activities there, and our RPA data that represents what activities our bots are taking care of in production. Process intelligence is taking all this disparate data and combining it into one holistic view of a business process. So now that we've combined all the different sources of data available, all of them are not necessary. We could combine two data sources like capture and certify, or combine in more as it's available, like adding in the process mining data and the RPA data. But once we have this unified data set, like we see here with our unified order to cash process example, we can start to do things like identify which activities are automated and which ones aren't. We can calculate and trend test automation coverage, and then track the realized ROI for test automation efforts, actually looking at the human time saved as we automate, each time that we run it. We can also identify which activities we already have captured blueprints for, right? So this is one way to expedite the building of additional automation. If we've got those user steps already handy, those might be the first ones we want to go ahead and move to automation because it'll be a faster path. We can identify any activities that haven't been captured yet, but are a key part of the production process from that process mining data. And then we can help with the prioritization of additional test automation by looking at the potential gains. So we can look at those, human saving time and kind of be able to prioritize what we should automate next from that. This prioritization of test automation all comes from that information from the production process data, right? So we can also look at RPA versus non-RPA activities, track and trend RPA coverage as well, and then prioritize additional RPA by looking at potential RPA gains. And we can throw parties based on the ROI from the realized RPA gains. We can then roll up those same metrics and those same suggested prioritizations at the business process level, determining which business processes could yield the greatest ROI, into departments, stack ranking department automation coverage and additional test automation and RPA opportunities, and to the enterprise level, looking at overall gains and opportunities across an organization. That's how we go from process discovery to process intelligence. We take the different sources of that data, align them with some AI and ML algorithms in order to surface and track realized ROI, potential ROI, prioritize automation, optimization, and RPA targets. This giving it this 360-degree view of business processes. And this is continuous. It's a platform that helps drive continuous improvement. Better intelligence leads to better automation, leads to better RPA, leads to new intelligence to drive new automation, and so on and so on. And so with that, let's jump into the process intelligence demo. All right. Here you can see the process intelligence dashboard. Now let's talk about the layout for a little bit here. So let's start over here on the left side, right? And you can probably see something that mirrors a bunch of the slides that I just showed, right? So even by color. So we've got process optimization, a little module here, business process testing module, and a connective RPA module. And each of these modules are looking at those specific areas. And one of the things that they're doing is they're looking for opportunities to make gains. So the system is taking the process mining and the capture data that's been uploaded, and it's saying, hey, through some process optimization efforts, we have, a potential ROI gain of this. If we were to streamline everything and it's ideal, here's our potential target. And it's doing the same thing for automation, it's doing the same thing for RPA, and then it's rolling up all this potential to one kind of overall potential figure. And then as we make those gains, as we improve processes, as we automate more, as we add more RPA, we get to track those realized savings as well. Now, I don't have the best curated demo data set yet, so please forgive me. But this is all based on real data that's been scrubbed. We just haven't scrubbed enough data yet to dump in there. But you'll definitely get the idea of everything that I'm showing here. And so as we make those improvements, right, we can track those realized savings, and we can track and trend how those things grow, right? And then over here on the right is a department breakdown as we make those same gains. So as we automate more, as we improve more, as we do more RPA, we can see how that's affecting each department, right? Which departments have more automation coverage and the realized gains from that automation coverage, as well as just being able to see their processes, right? How many variants are flowing through that department? Or is there a bunch of spaghetti that runs through this department, or is this kind of more of a leaner flow that actually runs through these departments? Now, one of the things that I previously discussed that we'll go over now is kind of wanting to prioritize, wanting to give suggestions. We've got this big mess of spaghetti. How it's overwhelming. How do we go about tackling it, improving it? And so one of the things that we wanted the system to provide was suggestions. So if we go over here to process optimization, we get some statistics like our overall processes, our overall process variance, the amount of spaghetti that we have, and then we can start looking at optimization targets, right? So we want to go in, we want to improve these processes. Where's a good place to start? And so we get kind of these graphs that are kind of doing a little bit of the work for us, right? So it's trying to surface some areas to begin, like our top scatter variance chart here, right? So we're taking the business processes, all that data that's been processed in the system, and we're basically telling you which business processes have the most spaghetti, right? So our order to cash process up here has 27 different variants. So if we're looking to go and we're looking to optimize those processes, the system's telling us, hey, this is a good place to start. Right? Hey, we can start by looking to order to cash. We go in there and we start looking ways to maybe trim out some of those variants. We start looking at ways to maybe educate people better in order to get those flows. We auto-generate that documentation, get that out there to try to start getting those processes better. Maybe we're finding some hidden system issues, we're surfacing those, we're fixing those, and we're starting to improve those processes. Another thing down here that we're looking at is kind of lost productivity time. So same kind of idea, except with time in those other variants, right? So outside the main flows, how much time is being spent? Is that an opportunity to maybe, hey, we can gain that time back or gain some of that time back if we just improve our processes? And then the overall process duration, right? Just of all my business process going on, which ones are taking the longest? Maybe I just want to start there. I want to see which activities are taking long, which handoff between activities are taking too long, and maybe I want to go and I want to investigate there, and that's a place I can make gains. The same kind of thing occurs here in the business process testing module, right? So we're looking for automation top targets. We've got an idea of here's the kind of our current coverage. Here's how we're recovering our business processes with automation. We're getting an idea of as we make gains, as we build more automation, the kind of ROI we're getting from that effort. And then we can kind of start to look at automation targets, right? So here we're looking at our top manual activity targets. So of the manual activities that we have not automated yet, which ones are we doing the most frequent and which ones cost the most? Right, so that gives us an idea of, hey, this record goods issue, it's one of the big ones that we have in production. This is one of the ones that we want to support with test automation. And then as we build automation for it, it rolls off the chart and another new activity is surfaced, right? And we can kind of almost work our way down and build out our roadmap just based on the suggestions here and go, okay, we're going to knock out these 5 activities. Let's go automate those, and then we'll take the next 5. We're always working from that aspect of ROI. Where are our greatest gains? Where do we need the most production support? Well, it's the most expensive, most frequent activities. Same kind of idea down here in manual activity cost versus manual activity coverage, except instead of an activity level, we're looking at it at a business process level. So maybe I want to go and I look at my order to cash process here, and I'm looking at the amount that's done manually. So right now, about 50% of my order to cash is done manually, 50% is automated. And I'm correlating that with cost. So, and it's running me the manual part, those manual activities are costing me about $200,000 a month. Right, so if I'm going to go and I'm going to build more automation, this is a great business process to start with, right? It's got high manual activities today, and I've got potential to really kind of get a good ROI by kind of by building more automation there behind some already manual activities. And then the RPA. So the RPA isn't there yet. It comes at the end of this month. But again, we'll be surfacing the same types of insights. So the RPA top targets, similar to your automation targets, where we're looking at activities that have the most potential for ROI if you were to make them RPA. You know, which activities are occurring the most in production, which activities carry the highest cost, those we would see the greatest gains if we were to turn them into RPA. At the same time, there'll be another graph there that also shows the automation support for the different business processes. So one of the things I pointed out earlier was that if you're going to run RPA, you definitely want to be able to identify any issues before it hits production. You know, one of the biggest challenges in RPA is everything seems to always break every time we do a release. Well, if that business process is well supported with testing and you can identify those issues prior to releasing to production, you're gonna have a more productive, better RPA experience, right? It's gonna be more successful. And so one of the ways to kind of surface what you should RPA next is to look at it by business process. How much support do I have there with automation so that I know, okay, this is a well-supported business process. This is a great business process to take to RPA. And so that's kind of a breakdown of the initial dashboard. And now that I have kind of this idea of what I can do next, right? Like I've got some, let's go look at order to cash, right? That was kind of the process optimization and also one of the business processes that I wanted to go look at. So if we're gonna go and we're gonna dig into the actual process analysis, we can hop over here, drill into the process analysis view. Oh, lovely. You get automatically logged out and then you log back in. And we go to process analysis. And we're going to go to look at our order to cash process here. All right. And as we look at it, this should look eerily familiar, like all the slides we saw earlier. The initial default to this view with all the different data that we've kind of processed and we've combined together is our start to end most frequent flow that is happening with all that data. You know, so here we go with our order to cash process. This flow, this variant from start to end is our most frequent variant. Now, if I want to start to kind of get a look at the spaghetti that's in there, I can go and I can add in some more variants and I start to get an idea of what's really happening in production, right? What does production really look like? And I can go in, I can add every crazy variant that goes in and, you know, I can kind of adjust and filter that data as I see fit. But let's use this kind of set of variants to kind of explore what's going on. So I'm kind of going in and I'm looking for opportunities on where things can improve. So one of the things I can do here now that I've got my data set is I can start to highlight different areas that, you know, different performance areas that I might want to drill more into. So I can look at the frequency to where I'm looking at this now, and this is how frequent are these flows happening? How frequent are these variants happening? And I can kind of see the outline here of my primary variant. So that first one that we looked at, here are those 6 events that surround that. If I want to get an idea of the duration that's happening in the times of these activities, I can highlight that as well. And so most everything seems to be happening pretty fast, but I've got some red and yellow over here. I can kind of come in here, I can click on this connection and I can see, okay, this has happened 325 times. The duration is averaging 4 months. I'm definitely going to want to go and look at that. Okay. So that's one place where I can kind of start to go and start to look, what the heck is going on there, you know? And so another thing I can kind of go and I can look at is I can also highlight how frequent are these things happening, right? So I can see right here, my main events here that we were looking at earlier, they're happening the most frequent. And here are some, you know, some variants that are happening in between my ideal path. I can kind of hover over and I can say, okay, how frequently is this happening? It doesn't look like much, but it's actually happening 438 times, right? And I can do the same thing with duration. So I've got that idea of each activity, what's the average time it's taking, but then kind of the relative time it's taking overall. Another way I can just kind of start going in there, start looking at different performance metrics. Now, with this layering of data, not only can I kind of start to look at ways to optimize, but I can start highlighting the source, right? So we've combined all this data for a reason. I want to see the source of where that data came from. So in this particular flow, for this particular set, we can kind of zoom in here. We can see that most of these activities came from our process mining data, right? And so this would tell me, okay, if I'm going to look to automate more, right? I've kind of shifted gears now. I've gone from, oh, okay, I'm going to look to optimize processes to where I'm going to start building some more automation for these things. First off, I can tell that I don't have any of these automated, but I can also tell from the process mining data that this starts to build a map, right? So I've got these activities that are occurring at a system level that I have yet to get capture data for. I don't have those user steps for these activities yet to automate, which I do have here with my create sales order item. So I've already grabbed the capture. I've already had a user record those steps, what drop downs they're using, what data they're entering. And so I'm ready to go and create automation for this activity. And then once I go and I create those activities, that's when create that automation. That's when it comes back as showing as this blue box. So the next time I come to the system, once I build the automation in Certify, I get that first certified test back. It'll turn the box blue. Actually, oh, I forgot the coolest part. So you eventually get to where you can look at a process tree like this, right? So it's really easy to see my automation coverage. I've automated 4 activities here, and I'm looking pretty good. But maybe I want to go in and kind of the step I skipped over was kind of marking it for automation or building that automation. How can I easily get it over to Certify? And so I can take a look at a flow here, and as long as I have the captures for everything, so I've got the captures for these activities, I can go and I can focus on one particular variant, right? And so here I've got this variant, and here I've got steps. I've got one of my activities are already automated as part of this, but I'm really interested in automating this complete flow, right? I want to automate this variant. It's one of my most important variants, let's say. So I definitely want to build automation for that. I've got all my captures. Once I isolate that variant, I can generate automation right here. I click on generate automation. It's going to create me a file down here in the lower left. That's my automation file that I just go and save in a place where Certify can pick it up. Right? Certify is going to pick it up, and I'm going to have my initial template with all the steps and everything in order to build that automated test. Right? If indeed this is also one of my most important variants, and I want to educate, right? So I want to go, okay, this is the way we should be doing it. I've gone through and I've captured all the events here. I can also create documentation right from here. So I can give it a document name, and I can give it a brandable template. I can go through, I can create new templates as needed, and then I can generate it in a PDF or a Word format. So let's generate it in Word. And this is taking all those captured steps, all the screenshots that we got through capture, and it's building a training document out of all those steps. All right, so here, I didn't add any branding, didn't add a template, but the branding appears at the top. I get a document of the business flow out of the gate. So, hey, here's everything that's happening in this document. Here's all the activities that I'm covering. And then I start to get the narrative, right? So what are my first steps? I enter into this field. So what's my second step? And I'm getting accompanying screenshots along the way because this was taken from actual real business capture data that the user used. And so we're able to leverage that same data that we used during that one-time record to build this documentation. And so I can take this, I can adjust it as needed since it's in a Word format, I can print it out as PDF, and I can send it out and say, hey, this is the flow we're using, these are the steps you should be doing. And then as we automate more, as we build more automation and continue to improve things, like once this flow is automated, and those test results come back, then I can return to the dashboard. The next time I log in, this will be a little higher. I will have gained a little more ROI on my test automation. And so that's kind of the idea here with process intelligence. We start with some initial metrics. We give you some areas to kind of go and focus, some suggestions. Hey, start your journey here. You can then go and dig into it a little more. Identify those areas to add automation. Identify those areas to improve processes. Generate that documentation as needed, and then continue that cycle. So as you automate more, you come back in, and then you get that progress bar. You get that growing as you continue to make improvements, build more, and generally just make everything more efficient. And with that, I will jump back. All right. So to wrap up, I want to review the big value drivers we see process intelligence being able to help with as organizations take on process challenges. Optimizing production processes, so trimming down the wasteful variance, looking at those underlying processes to find hidden pain points and the reasons behind not so hidden pain points. Accelerate that automation. Accelerate your automation by tracking automation progress, automation coverage, and prioritizing that next set of automation targets. Mapping and tracking processes for digital transformation. So we're going to leverage the layering of process information to help build a transformation roadmap. What do we do next? What are the next steps we take? What's the progress that we're making? How are we tracking and trending all this? And finally, continuously improving. So identifying processes that need improvement and then taking action to improve them through education, through optimization, through automation and RPA, guiding that process improvement across the entire enterprise. This is all made possible by our connective automation platform. Each process area helping to better progress the others, right? Process intelligence is helping to drive faster test automation and RPA. Test automation is helping to provide support and stability for current business processes and future RPA. And RPA is helping to ease production process pressure and maximize ROI. All of that value coming back to process intelligence to not only monitor and track progress, but also power that next wave of automation and optimization. All these areas working together as one continuous improvement platform to kind of help overcome the challenge of process.